Welcome to Around the ECHL, brought to you by TRU by Hilton, the place where the visiting teams stay when they come to town. Joining me on the broadcast, you've seen him before. Boy, we don't see him enough. We didn't see him at all last year, so I guess just a couple of visits this year. Colin Shuck, is great to see you. Shucker, give me the latest news. What's going on in Steelhead land?
Well, the Steelheads finished out the month of March, maybe not in the way that they would have last hoped. Dropped 2-3 against the Worcester Railers in the first franchise meeting for a series against them since they came in 2017-18. And unfortunately, it does break a streak where the Steelheads, for the first time this year, have dropped 2 of 3 at home to an opponent, which is something that most teams can't say that they've been able to do in their home buildings. But it brought, I think it was 8 straight weekends of at least 2 or 3 games, which the Steelheads did not drop, but happened the first time this weekend. Trying to find their consistency is a little bit the biggest thing for the team right now heading into the month of March, but I was just crunching the numbers over on my radio show, and funny enough, the Steelheads have been consistently performing the same way in not only this past month in February, 14 points in the month, which is consistent for 4 straight months now, but also in the first 3 quarters of the season, the Steelheads have either 20 or 21 points and about 10 wins. So they're still consistently over the stretch of the last 17 games doing the same thing that they have all year. It's just been short-term versus long-term. That's been the hardest thing for consistency for this team.
Boy, do I know that. For us this year, it's been just crazy. We had the sweep against Newfoundland. We had the sweep against you guys. We've lost games we shouldn't have this year, and you look at the names and you go, wow, Costello's leading the league in points and scoring. Combs has been on fire. Why is his team not winning? But it's been mistakes, giving up, obviously leading the league in shorthanded goals with 17 is one thing you can point at right there. That's tough. And, just got to tighten things up defensively. I guess the one thing about it is, and even though the guys are saying all the right things after this past weekend, with being swept in Cincinnati, they were in every game. They played tight, should have won the one game, lost in overtime. So you got to keep fighting. In our division, I think with maybe the exception of you guys in Utah, I still feel like there's a couple spots there for the taking, 3rd and 4th. I know, give Rapid City credit. They've been playing some good hockey. Tulsa went through a bad stretch where I think they lost 5 games in a row. 4 of them in regulation. So, eventually you got to just start winning some games, put a stretch together.
Yeah, and this time of year, too, that's what makes the difference when making a playoff run is consistency. And every team goes through that spurt at some point this season. Utah, during the middle of the season and early in the 3rd quarter, got in the run where they had dropped 4 or 5 straight games in a row. And that's what's kept the top of the division so much in check for the Steelheads, is that even though the Steelheads have had inconsistencies, everyone really has. But, we're going to be in the playoff push at this point down the stretch for the rest of the season for everybody within the final 20 games of the year. And with everyone in the playoff race, especially in our division, you're going to be playing everyone's best hockey. It's going to come down to that consistency, and it's going to come down to limiting those types of mistakes. The Steelheads have had that recently where they've been shooting themselves in the foot a lot more than what they would want, and everyone goes through it. The question's just going to become, when can everyone put it together to make a run, not only to get into the postseason, but also once you make it there, continue that on into what could be a maximum of 28 more games for the rest of the year in playoffs.
It's been the up and down this year with between Charlotte, and Allen and 2 of our best players. Antoine Bebeau called up again. He came for the 1-3 game series, back up again. Nolan Neen came for 1 game and was sent back up. So, it's been tough. And I know every team's been dealing with it between COVID and, the taxi squad when that was around, and just all different things that you're dealing with up above that you have no control of. And I know Martinson said a couple times, that's been the biggest issue, is not knowing, what's going to be your lineup or your lines from night to night. And I know every team's dealing with it, but that's why we have the inconsistencies that we have this year.
Yeah, and that's why everyone's gone through it in their own different way. I think save of maybe Toledo, who has been in a different type of scenario compared to everybody else because they're so close to their affiliates. Everyone's had that issue, and it's been a trying year this year in a different way than last year was for the teams that played. Last year is because of COVID inconsistencies. I'm not sure who you're going to have because of the breakouts of the pandemic. This year, it's purely just movement up and down that has made the middle part and the dog days of the season much more strenuous for teams and especially for coaches when you're trying to put a lineup together and you're trying to get that consistency from a team side of things, especially when you're heading into the final full month of the regular season.
Colin Shuck joining us here on Around the ECHL. Thought about you this weekend because I went to the Dallas Buffalo game and saw Jake Ottinger play, and I remember him well from our league, but it's amazing what he's doing with Dallas this year. His numbers are great. It appears now he is the guy. There for a while they had three guys that were kind of in the mix, but now it's Ottinger's, I guess, job to lose. Are you surprised at how well he's doing at the top level?
No, not really. I mean, he was a first-round draft pick. I think he was 29th overall when he was selected by Dallas anyway. So you knew that there were high expectations for him to come in and eventually take over the number one job. The biggest question was when that was going to happen, because you had at the time Ben Bishop and Anton Hudobin playing as one of the best tandems in hockey right now. And then they brought in Braden Holtby over the summer, and we can see how well that decision was because Ben Bishop is now retired. Anton Hudobin hasn't had a great season at 35 years old, so now he's actually in the AHL with the Texas Stars. And with Holtby being a longer contract, that helps groom a young Jake Ottinger. And look at the goaltenders that Ottinger has had to work with to be able to help elevate his game. Bishop, Hudobin, and Holtby, who each in their own time were one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League. So it felt like only a matter of time. Maybe it was earlier than what Dallas may have wanted, but it always felt like this was going to be the progression. And if Ottinger wasn't ready, the insurance was Braden Holtby to be that holdover until Ottinger could become the number one goaltender. But to see what he's doing this year is remarkable for how young that he is, how little time that he's had at the professional level. But that goes to show you just how good the scouting was in Ottinger and when Dallas picked him up, and they were right on key with what they were hoping Ottinger's potential could be, and he solidified himself as easily a number one goaltender in the National Hockey League. Now the next step's going to be, can he be that elite level top five goaltender and a dominating force for years to come? Something that Dallas has had the fortunes of is having good, strong goaltending for multiple years in a row with one, maybe two goaltenders for 4 to 6 years at minimum.
You look at your roster this year, and no surprise, AJ White's right there at the top, your most consistent player. I thought it was so strange last year seeing him play in Utah. I just never got used to that. I've always admired the way he played the game. He's a great leader on the ice, off the ice too. As far as goaltending, Jay Kupski's been your main guy. He's played in the majority of the games this year. How has that rotation worked out for you? Because I know Colton Point's played at least 10 to 15, it seems like, if my memory serves me right.
Right. And you remember, too, that earlier in the year, Matt Jurusik was the one down with the Steelheads, and Colton Point was up in the AHL level. And they kind of flipped spots through November into December. And at the time, the Seals were running with three goaltenders, Jurusik, Kupski, as well as Point. But then after the taxi squads came in, Jurusik got signed. He's got called up, and he's been up there ever since behind Adam Scheel and Anton Hudobin. But the rotation has pretty much come down to who has the hot hand gets a majority of the starts in the weekend. The fortunate thing for the Steelheads this year, and it's something that's unusual for Idaho or for most teams at our level, all four goaltenders that have played for the Steelheads this year, regardless of how many games that they've played, all have a sub 2.5 goals against average, and their save percentages all sit above 910. That's not a conventional stat line to see among goaltenders at this level. Usually you see one start to take off and then another one is developing or is the predominant backup. This year it hasn't been this way, and that's been reflective even with Kupski and Point, just the two of them in rotation. What seems like that will be the rotation for the rest of the season. There have been times where Colton Point, regardless of results, has been playing much better, and he'll get a lion's share of the starts in a weekend. There have been other times where Jake Kupski has played the lion's share because of more consistent play. Like he played 2 of 3 this past weekend, but then before that, Colton Point had started 4 of the previous 6 games. So it comes down to feel. It comes down to consistency. It comes down to who's winning in net, especially while the front is looking for better consistency with a very young core of players and still a lot of pieces missing up in the AHL. But rotation wise, it's been pretty fluid. And that's part of the reason for the Steelhead success this season, is that they've had strong goaltending all year, and it hasn't mattered as much who's been in net. It's just come down to circumstances around them that has changed performance.
This is Colin Shuck, the voice of the Idaho Steelheads, joining us here on Around the ECHL, brought to you by TRU by Hilton. I read your press release today. The Jaden Deluca Foundation. Obviously, you guys had a great auction, raised over $30,000. Give us that story. Who is he, or who was he, I should say, and how did you guys get involved in give us the whole scoop on that.
Well, the relationship goes about 5 years into the past. This is the fourth time that the Steelheads and the Jaden Deluca Foundation have partnered together, and it's a local organization too. Jaden was a young kid that had a heart condition, and unfortunately, due to the complications from that heart condition, passed away at a very young age. So his parents founded the foundation, and that's how that kick started, and that's how that began. And the relationship has been great. The previous 3 auctions, I believe it was all live auctions, and I believe each time it was over $16,000 being raised to the auction that are going toward pediatric heart condition awareness and research. This year, it's part of the reflective. And I remember the last time we talked about attendance and the response of Boise welcoming back the Steelheads after a year away. We see that in the community side of things as well. There hasn't been as much community this year because of the ECHL league protocols when it comes to the pandemic. But in 2 jersey auctions this year, both have been all online, which is a first for the organization. Both jersey auctions have raised over $30,000 for the respective organizations. St. Luke's being the first one pink in the rink last month, and then Jaden Deluca blowing out the old total by almost double this year, this past weekend. You look at it, it's over $65,000, I believe, that's been raised in 2 jersey auctions, with still 1 remaining in March. That's a testament to the support that the Steelheads community and the Treasure Valley community has given to not only the Steelheads, but also local initiatives that really can make a difference from the grassroots level. And as a representative of the organization, we are absolutely smitten with how well these 2 jersey auctions have gone, especially this past weekend, which we weren't sure how it would be received compared to the Pink in the Rink auction, which is usually the biggest night of the season, but it was on par with that. So we're very fortunate. We're ecstatic at the results, and we're just happy that we can help make a benefit to the community in this type of way and make this much of a big financial impact compared to previous seasons.
Yeah, I love kids, and soft spot in my heart there, especially for the little ones, and to hear, obviously that sad story. But the one thing, his family, I'm sure that, because of this and the generosity of the people of Boise and the Steelheads organization, his memory lives on. And that's one great night for them. That they're trying to help others. And that's just a great story. When I read that, especially read, I believe it was his mom's quote in there, it was like, wow, it got me right here. And I thought, man, that's great. Great job by you guys. I love to see people helping people. And, the fact that you guys raised that much money with 1 jersey auction is incredible. So my applause to you and the whole Steelheads organization. That's greatness. That is greatness.
And one thing that Boise and the Treasure Valley is all about is each other and community support. You see that in so many different ways, and this is a microcosm of that. Even the next day at a public free skate that for the first time did not have players, one of the highest donation totals toward the Idaho Food Bank in just a free skate. You bring canned goods. It helps to get tickets, but one of the best turnouts we've seen in years too. And again, that goes beyond the Steelheads. That is just the Boise community doing what they do to help each other. And that's exactly what you get out of this area.
Well, I'll tell you what, you picked a great weekend to come to DFW, because last weekend was horrible. We've had a couple ice storms over the last 2 to 3 weeks. I can tell you, my friend, the forecast when you arrive here in town will be in the mid 70s. And I think Saturday is going to touch 80.
Oh.
So you know what? you picked the right time to come because it's not. I mean, February went out with a bang for sure. It's rare that we get one ice to snowstorm per season. We got two, basically in a matter of about 3 or 4 weeks. So that was kind of shut this whole city down. And you know what? This kid grew up in Buffalo, man. I could shovel snow with the best of them. I had a snowmobile when I was a kid. I learned to ski when I was at a young age, and I can deal with snow and drive on it all day long. But when it comes to ice, nobody's good on ice. And we had about a quarter of inch of ice the last time, which pretty much paralyzed the city, and everything was shut down. So you definitely picked the right time to come back to Texas. And I hope we get to catch up at least a little bit, maybe Saturday night after the game for a few minutes. But as always, it's always good when Shucker's in the house.
I appreciate that, Tommy, and I'll make sure just for you to bring my shorts.
You will need them, my friend, especially if you're going to do a little jog around, Allen in the community on Friday or Saturday afternoon. Thanks for doing this. And again, great job by your whole organization in the Jaden Deluca Foundation and in raising all that money. And, good luck this weekend. Can't wait to see you.
Appreciate that, Tommy. Thank you very much.
All right, the great Colin Shuck, the voice of the Idaho Steelheads, joining us here on Around the ECHL. And of course, we are brought to you by TRU by Hilton.
Get sunshine for the whole squad at Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
Welcome to another segment of Around the ECHL every Wednesday. And with me is a young broadcaster in our league, had the, fortunate opportunity to take over for a guy who's now calling games in the National Hockey League. Andrew Mossberg joins us here. What is it like to take over for Everett Fitzhugh? I mean, the guy's become a legend. He's done a TNT game now. And it's got to give you big hopes and dreams.
It does, Tommy. Thanks for having me. The first thing I do want to say is I appreciate you saying I'm young, which I'd like to think 27 is. The hairline does not make me look very young.
You're young, man. Wait till you hit the 40s, and then you're going to be like, okay, what happened to my 20s? So you still have a long way to go.
Well, I hope you're right. But to your point, I mean, Everett is a trailblazer in the path that not only he's created for himself and what he is trying to achieve, but also for this position. I think the Cyclones would have been attractive to any candidate, but certainly when you know where your predecessor is going, that adds to it. And the other thing I'll say about Fitzy real quick is I didn't work in this league. I didn't even meet him when the job opened. I was sort of beating myself up because I try to make it a point to interact with other broadcasters when I was climbing my way up and still am. And he was one of the guys that just for some reason or another, I had never gotten around to. And I just remember going, man, like I wish I would have talked to this guy. But then when I got the job, he was one of the first people I reached out to. I asked if I could call him, and I got off a 1-hour phone call feeling like I had known him for a decade. I mean, He is a giant teddy bear, extremely welcoming, was very much, hey, don't try to be the next me with the Cyclones, be the first you. So you're right, that pressure is there, but he really kind of helped relax me and get me comfortable in this role.
Well, and I remember a couple of years ago, we made the trip to Cincy, and he said, all right, I'm taking you out. These are my favorite spots. And so we went to a few different locations around one. You'll know right away. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the place, but it's right across from where the Reds play. And it's
probably Holy Grail.
Yep, that's it. And decorated with all Reds paraphernalia. And I think they have maybe some of the wall from the old Cincinnati Reds Stadium, the, Riverfront, back in the day. So yeah, he's a great host, good man, very, very happy for him. Now kind of in a way affiliated with Seattle. So I've had him on a couple times talking about, life in Seattle and kind of building that brand from day one, which Fitzy's a great guy to have, as your ambassador. First of all, he's such a lovable guy. He's kind-hearted. He knows where he came from. He knows where he started. And I think that's one of the great things, reaching out, talking to you and helping young people. I've always enjoyed doing that. And, whether it was, from the radio world, which I did a lot of that here in Dallas before I jumped to hockey, or calling games and helping young broadcasters. I have a broadcaster. I don't want to get off too much on a tangent because this is about you. But since you talked about it, Jason Thomas, who worked for me a couple of years ago as a broadcast intern, and I promised him, I said, look, you work hard and I will help you find a job. And sure enough, last year at the beginning of the year, we weren't playing yet. We didn't start until December. And New Mexico Ice Wolves could not play in Albuquerque. They were playing their games here. So their owner had reached out to me and said, hey, we're going to play a lot of our games in DFW. Would you be interested in calling the games for us? I said, sure. So I did. And up until December, I did. But then at that point, they needed the broadcaster. And they said, do you know anyone? I said, yeah, my broadcast intern, Jason Thomas. And he got an opportunity. He did great, like I knew he would. And he became the full-time broadcaster. So anything you can do to help out young broadcasters in this league, because, hey, it wasn't out that long ago. It seems like just yesterday, I'm knocking on doors and do whatever I had to do to get a job, or at least get somebody to talk to me or return a phone call. So you're on the right track, as they say, my friend. You're on the right track.
Well, I think to your point, I appreciate you saying all those things. It's always kind to hear that. And I think this as somebody who has done more of these seasons than I have, that it doesn't matter. Age is only a number in terms of the compliments. And when you get a positive thing, I mean, people don't know. And as you and I probably know, it's a lot more than stepping into a booth for 3 hours and calling.
Yes.
And when you are in the dog days of the season, like I think personally we probably are right now, where there's just a lot of games and a lot of long hours and not a lot of days off, it can mean the world to you when a fan just says, hey, you're doing a great job. And the terms that you mentioned, Jason Thomas in New Mexico, ironically enough, Michael Wilczynski, who was the previous voice of the New Mexico Ice Wolves, was my color commentator when we were in college together at Millersville University. I don't want to go off on a tangent like you said as well, because we'll be here forever.
Yeah.
But even though I do still consider myself a young up-and-coming broadcaster who knocks on doors, or in 2022 sends emails and requests phone calls, I very much try to pay it forward as it was taught to me, that if there's anybody, whether it's my intern here or somebody who's from my alma mater or somebody who just wants to reach out. I put a Twitter post out maybe 2 months ago, and I think I put it on LinkedIn as well, just saying, if there is anybody out there that wants to talk about broadcasting or wants to talk about this industry, I am not your go-to source, and you should never look at what I say as gospel, but I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to even listen and be that person that you vent to about your long days, and about the struggles and trials of trying to get a job that 100 to 200 people want to go in for. Because as you know, it's a challenge, but I love it. All the great stories and the great people you get to meet. And that's a commonality, as you know, too. I experienced it at Vegas with you and the rest of the fraternity here in the ECHL broadcasting realm. There's just so many great broadcasters, but even better, genuine human beings.
And I think, that's one of the things that I learned early on, make friends, always, make sure that you take the time to, send somebody a quick note, say, hey, thanks for all your help, whatever. And it does go a long way. Having the advantage of working in Dallas radio, I got to know Ralph Stranges, who was the previous voice of the Dallas Stars. And, eventually, I was doing the Stars pre and post game show and on Fox Radio when I worked there here in Dallas, and got to be good friends with Ralph. And I remember him coming up one time. He said, I want to come up and do a game with you. I'm like, of course. Yeah, that'd be awesome. So I remember him coming up, and, he said to me, before the game, he said, what do you want to be doing 5 years from now? And I said, I really don't know. He said, let me tell you something. He said, a lot of people in the broadcasting world want to rush and get to the American Hockey League. He said, if you are good at what you do, it doesn't matter if you're in the NAHL, the American Hockey League, or the ECHL. If somebody wants to hire you, you don't feel like you have to run to an AHL city and go take a job in Rockford or one of those AHL, Rochester, New York, one of those AHL destinations. He said, you are calling hockey in Dallas, Texas. He said, part of it has got to be where you want to be. You want to be comfortable in the place you're living. You want to live in a city where you're happy. And I took that to heart, and I thought, you know what, if the opportunity ever comes about. And I did have an interview a few years ago, and I feel fortunate to have had an interview with Vegas for the radio job when that came open. And just coincidentally, I had sent my my package to their PR director and head of broadcasting and communications, and said, hey, I'm just interested or whatever. And he replied back right away and said, hey, I'd love to do a Zoom call with you. And I said, I can do better than that. I said, I am in Vegas. Maybe it was, what was before Zoom? It was maybe what was the
Skype?
previous Skype? Yes. I said, I'm in Vegas. We were there for the league meetings. They weren't in the arena yet, but I took a 40-minute Uber ride up to their corporate office and sat down and had a great conversation. And, I knew probably at that time, he said, I'll keep in touch with you. He said, right now, broadcaster is not our number one priority. And I remember talking to him saying, hey, what was, because you get a million of these. And I said, what was it that I said that at least got me an opportunity? He said, well, number one, he said, I love the fact, and I remember putting this in my letter. I said, hey, look, you're a new team in town. The one thing you have to do is sell the team. If you need me to put on a sandwich board and walk up and down the strip nightly promoting Vegas Golden Knights hockey, I'd do it. And I said, it's not just about getting in there calling games. It's about being an ambassador for your team. And I was lucky enough, Andrew, to be a part of the opening of this team. And I remember what it was like, and people had no idea who the Allen Americans were. Are you a college team? Are you a high school team? Or are you a minor pro team? And I remember being out in the community, and I think one of the advantages I had at the time was knowing a lot of people in the Dallas media, from covering the Cowboys and the Rangers and the Stars, for years, doing the talk radio thing. So I think you have an advantage doing that. You have a chance here now in Cincinnati, following a legend, and he will be, because he is destined for greatness in Fitzy and Everett Fitzhugh. So, you got a good spot, man. Whatever you did to sell yourself to get that job, kudos to you, because as you know, there's only, in this league, there's 20 plus jobs. In the American Hockey League, there's 30 plus jobs. Same in the NHL. You've got one of the pro hockey jobs, under 100 total, out there, and you've got one of them. So obviously you're doing something right, and you got a long way to go.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And as you kind of mentioned with Ralph, when he asked you, what do you want to do in 5 years? I think to that point where he says it doesn't matter if you're in the NAHL, ECHL, AHL city. I mean, coming from Peoria, where I was with the Rivermen, which was an ECHL and an AHL city, and now they're in the Southern Pro League. That was the jump I needed to take at that point in my career. I had actually been in the NAHL the season before with a team that went under at the end of the year. And so I jumped to Peoria, took that job. And I remember sitting with my boss at the time, Bart Rogers, who I was texting earlier today. And I still stay in touch with Bart. And I remember him telling me, and he was in the ECHL back in the 90s. He was there when they won the Kelly Cup. And he was there during the time Matt McConnell at one point was with the AHL Rivermen. And now with the Arizona Coyotes. And I just remember I literally day one, I sat with Bart, I went into his office, and we probably talked for an hour. And he had said to me, look, here you are in your mid-20s. You're in a town where you know nobody. You have no family around you. Your girlfriend's back home. I know this is tough, but if you give it 110% every day, all the time, you will move up. And if you care and you put the team before you, you will move up. And that's hard to sometimes think, because when you're young, to your point and what Ralph had mentioned about the Dallas Stars or that everybody wants to just get to the NHL right away. Look, I'm not lying to you. If the, insert NHL team name called me right now and asked me if I could go, odds are I'm probably going. But you can't be looking at it that way. And when I was in college and getting right out of college, I did look at it that way. I'm like, oh my God, I got to be in the National Hockey League by the time I'm 30. I'm 27, could still happen. But if it doesn't, that's all right. And I care more. I catch myself caring far more about the Cyclone success here in our media, in our market. We just last night, to the misfortune of the Allen Americans, had Jesse Schultz score his 1,000th professional point. I'm trying to champion that to our media so they will cover us more, and we will get opportunities to put not just Schultz, of the Cyclones in the limelight of Cincinnati, Ohio. Not so much me. If I have to go on and talk about it, that's fine, and I'll do it, and I'm happy to do so. But to me, this logo matters way more than this face. And I think that's the approach you have to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're on the bus, and I spent a lot of years on the bus traveling up and down the highway with these guys, 20-plus-hour bus rides to Rapid City, South Dakota, or, even at one time a 31-hour bus ride. I don't want to ever do that again, to Boise, Idaho. So yeah, you get to know the guys. It's part of the job. You're driving back in the middle of the night doing your game notes or your post-game story on the bus, hoping that the internet works, hoping the bus doesn't break down, and hoping you get 2 hours sleep so you can call a game the next night. So those are the things that you live for. Those are the things, that I've been lucky enough to do now here for this is year 13. And before that, a couple of years in the North American Hockey League with the Texas Tornado. Andrew, a couple more things before we wrap this up. First of all, I got to ask you, what has it been like, the biggest challenge you found, first of all, coming to a new organization, but dealing with all the COVID issues that we're dealing with as broadcasters, PR guys, and a representative of the team?
So I think that gets answered in two ways, because it is to a degree two questions. First, the challenge for me shifting gears is that when I was in Peoria, I was one of 6 people. There are 20 people in our front office staff here. So sometimes less is more. They took more off my plate compared to what I was doing for the Rivermen. But I honestly, speaking completely transparent, I think at times I struggled with that. I'm used to having all the power. I'm used to doing everything. And it's like, well, there are people that are more qualified than you, honestly better than you, some things that you had to do before. So it's okay. Take a seat back. Second, I think, was the media coverage, because we are literally in the shadow, as you know, coming to Cincinnati a couple of seasons ago. We are in the shadows of Great American Ballpark, where the Cincinnati Reds play. We're down the street from Paul Brown Stadium, where the Bengals play. We're in the same region as UC, where the Bearcats reside for college. And it also kind of great for the city, difficult for us that the Bengals have their best season ever, and that UC goes on a historic run to the Cotton Bowl. So those were challenges that I think I've had to kind of navigate through. And you learn, again, less is more. Sending a media guy or gal 3 paragraphs of content is not good. You need to get 1 sentence here. This is the milestone. I can send you this. Will you use it? Less is more. Go to them. Don't make them come to you, because you're putting more work on their plate. You may need to do 95%, and they just need to have the stick mic there and be ready to talk on camera for 2 minutes. But that's okay, because at the end of the day, it's going to help our brand. So media and understanding less is more were my challenges here for me. In terms of an organization with COVID, and we're still dealing with it, Tommy, we can't, our fans don't really have access to our players. It's kind of a custom across minor league sports that a jersey auction follows with a fan getting a photo next to a player holding that signed jersey up. We have not been able to do that. The players sign the jerseys in their locker room, and that jersey is then transported by a member of our staff to the person that won the auction. That is difficult. Fan access is unfortunate for them, because they want this access that a lot of our season ticket holders have been accustomed to for several seasons now. And then, wearing masks in certain areas of the building, and, your authorized hockey personnel floor, which for us is level 2 in Heritage Bank Center. There are challenges. And look, I don't think it's a secret. There have been COVID outbreaks around the league and leagues. I dealt with COVID in January personally. I had to call games remotely for a weekend, and it sucked. To be blunt, it was not fun. But we do a great job here, and kudos to Kristen Ropp, who's our vice president and general manager, Sean Lynn, who's our director of marketing and public relations for Heritage Bank Center and the Cyclones. They do just a fantastic job of facilitating a well-structured environment and a next man up mentality, where if somebody went down due to COVID in our office, kind of like the players, you need to bring in a new body. For us, somebody had to pick up somebody else's work, and we're all willing to do that because we work in such a team-like environment. I mean, you will not go a day in this office without somebody coming by to make you smile or laugh. And it makes the job a heck of a lot easier when, to your point, you're navigating through, I'm going to say I'm young, but I'm going to assume the most difficult time in all levels of sports, especially the minor leagues.
Who was your hero growing up? Who was the broadcaster when you had this dream of becoming hopefully an NHL broadcaster someday, but a hockey broadcaster? Who was your hero? Who was your go-to guy?
I mean, it's probably Jim Jackson for the Philadelphia Flyers, which I don't have their logo here, but I've got my Phillies thermos, a big Philly sports guy.
I love it.
I was just born into that. My grandfather was, he lived in New Jersey, not right across the bridge from Philadelphia, downtown Broad Street, in South Philadelphia, where all the venues were. My dad with him, growing up, they were, big Eagles and Sixers fans more than anything probably. But then my pap really was into the Phillies. I started getting into that. And then, to be completely honest, I'm going way off on a tangent here, so stop me if you need to. But my uncle Butch, who I actually never met him, he passed away before I was born, but he was a goaltender in hockey. And I remember hearing that story when I was a kid, and I thought, oh, that's kind of neat. And I was never into sports though growing up. Like when I was still in single digits before I turned 10, and maybe when I was 10, 11, 12, like I tried out for things. I did not like them. I did not enjoy basketball, hated football. And then one day I told my mom, and I was like 14, I was like, man, I kind of want to play hockey. Some of my friends at school want to do it. And I come from a blue collar family. My dad worked in the restaurant business. My mom as well as a waitress. They looked at me and they were like, you know how much money that is? Like, we don't have money for that. And I was like, well, can I try? Please, please, please. So we went to Dick's Sporting Goods, got a really basic bare bones equipment kit. And my mom's sitting there thinking too, like, Andrew, you don't like tackle football. You don't like catching the ball. It would hurt your hands as a kid. You want to play a game where guys are hitting each other into glass and there's a puck that people are supposed to get in front of and block that's coming God knows how many miles per hour. Certainly not that fast at the middle school, high school level, but still.
Sure.
I was like, yeah, I want to try it. And something stuck to me. I fell in love with the game. Jim Jackson, the voice of the Philadelphia Flyers. I became a diehard Flyers fan growing up as well, which I sort of put the cart before the horse there. I watched hockey because my friends got me into it. And as I was watching, I then decided to play. Jim Jackson was the TV voice for the Flyers, and I loved it, and I loved watching. And one day, to the disappointment of my family, I did not want to go to college right away. So I graduated high school. I worked literally at a McDonald's to save up money and went to Hershey Bears games, and that's where I blew my money that I saved to just go to Hershey Bears games with my friend. And it was opening night for the Flyers that season. I wasn't in school anymore, and I watched Jim Jackson on the open, and I thought, man, wait a second. He's on TV. He's talking about hockey. He's getting paid. He's probably getting paid a good amount of money because he's in the NHL. Yeah. I should do that. And my friends are like, yeah, you don't have a bad voice, whatever. So the following year I enrolled in Millersville University. I benefited because my predecessor there had just left, a guy by the name of Jordan Coons, who was with the Greenville Swamp Rabbits a couple seasons ago. And now back with the Dubuque Fighting Saints in the ECHL. But that opened the door for me right away freshman year to step in their broadcast booth, which was a card table and an ice rink. And I loved every minute of it for 4 years. So I gave you a really long answer, and I'm sorry about that. But Jim Jackson was my idol growing up, and that's the roundabout story of how I am where I am on this conversation with you.
Have you reached out to him?
Yeah, I worked for the Flyers for a year as kind of a sort of a glorified intern. I had previously interned with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, their AHL affiliate. So that was sort of my bridge to Philadelphia. And I shadowed my sophomore year there. That was still at the point where I was in the kind of like, oh my God, these are celebrities phase. So I remember he gets up, hey, Jim Jackson. And I'm like, Jim Jackson. He's like, oh, you're Jim Jackson too? Like, no, I'm Andrew. Sorry. Like I was in awe and my face still lights up talking about it. But then I got to work and help him out a little bit, just handing the finals to them after the game. And I always took the time to interact with him. And then it helped that when I was in the NAHL, the team I was with, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Knights, they had an EHL team, Tier 3 junior. and a kid by the name of Johnny Jackson played on that team, and it happened to be Jim's son. So Jim would come to games a few times. I think I remember one time, like, this is so random, but I try to remember as much as I can. I think I remember one time I was hungry and he just like bought me a thing of fries or something at the concession stand. And I was like, wow, Jim Jackson bought me fries. And I told him, I said, one day, if I ever get to the NHL, I owe you a boat of fries.
That's awesome. Boy, what a great story. And you know what? Trust me, those guys, they'd love to hear that. Even though they're in the NHL, they remember when they got their start riding on a bus somewhere. Jenna Red, obviously with the Sabres, was, still is a hero. I mean, from the time, I think it probably 5 or 6 years old, listening to him calling the games and just dreaming of someday getting an opportunity to do what he has done for a long time for a living. And this is his last year. It was pretty cool. And I actually got a chance to chat with him at a Dallas Stars game. I was covering the team and he came in the press box, and much like you, I was like, how do I approach this guy? What do I say? And of course, what did I say? I've been listening to you since I was 5 years old. And he said, oh my God, you made me feel like I'm really old. So I thought, I'm off on the right foot there, aren't I? But, great guy, awesome conversation, and I want to get him on. I do the 2 podcasts a week, the Around the ECHL with people like yourself and great people from around our league. And then our Red, White, and You podcast, which is just basically about anything going on locally, our players. A lot of times, Coach Martinson. I want to get Jenna Red on there. This is his last year. I want to talk to him at some point. I just got to figure out the right way to approach it. I mean, when you've been doing hockey as long as he has, you think he's really going to want to do a Zoom call with a ECHL broadcaster? I hope so. But great story on your part. I loved hearing everything. And keep that Everett Fitzhugh voicemail on your phone there, because I called. I was like, did I just hear Fitzy's voice? It was funny, and I thought, you know what? I don't blame you, Andrew. The guy just got a job in the NHL. Leave that on there for a bit. It definitely caught me off guard, and kudos to you, and keep doing what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to keep it there. I mean, I work on my cell phone anyway, and to me, I agree. Everett's, he's in the rafters of this office for me. So keep his voicemail going. Why not?
All right. Well, hey, it's been fun chatting. We could have gone on for another 25, 30 minutes. I had several more questions, but, good to again see you. Fun to meet you at the league meetings in Vegas, which is kind of our time every year for all the broadcasters to get together and kind of talk shop and compare notes. But we will chat again, my friend. I promise.
Yeah. Never good to talk to if you're in a rush, because I just take forever. But thank you, Tommy. It was a blast chatting with you.
All right. And this has been another edition of Around the ECHL.
Hello, Americans fans. Former American defenseman Nolan Dakota here with a message from Fast Signs in Plano. Both Plano locations are independently owned and operated by myself and are proud partners with the Americans for this season and the Americans Drive for 5. At Fast Signs, we understand the burden this difficult time presents on businesses, and helping you to solve your changing visual communication and business challenges is our commitment. Mention this ad when you call Fast Signs in Plano for 10% off your next order. Fast Signs, more than fast, more than signs.